Welcome to the Cowpox Bros podcast. I'm your host, Terrence, and with me is my co-host, Jason, calling in from the Bat Cave in Indianapolis. Jason, how are you, my good man?
Hey man, I'm doing pretty good. It's another lovely Tuesday. Can't wait to get this started, man. Hey, it's a holiday week, so it makes it even more fun to do the show, knowing that you know got some goodness coming up in a couple days. Football, especially. Of course, our Bears are playing. So, and based on some news today, it might be a pretty meaningful game in a way. So,
I
um,
don't know if I don't know if it's that meaningful. I don't know if it's that meaningful for Matt Nagy. I'm like, fam, if y'all gonna fire me, just do that shit before the holidays, so I can get my shit together and put it in a box.
But we'll say that because that may be a topic for the episode next week. So, but yeah, man. Hey, I'm ready to get into it. It's Tuesday, so let's get it.
Yes, sir. Thank you for listening. This is episode 32 of the Cowpox Bros podcast. For the uninitiated, Cowpox Bros is the podcast to hear. We are a weekly podcast for fans of culture, current events, sports, life, and entertainment.
And as always, we are your hosts, Terrence and Jason. And every single Thursday, we bring you a brand new episode where we discuss the current events of the day, the sports, and the athletes we love.
And even some of the athletes we loathe. No matter the topic, you can expect a brutally honest and fun exchange of snark while learning through the lens of our 30 years of friendship that originated in Calumet Park, Illinois.
Folks, for more Cal Park Bros content, make sure you connect with us on all social media: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, under the handle Cal Park Bros or Cal Park Bros Podcast for more behind the scenes of the show and just to engage with us every single day. But important note here: the Cal Park Bros Podcast is available to listen and subscribe for free wherever you listen to podcasts.
Like us, love us, share us, follow us. And folks, if you like us, hell, why wouldn't you?
Hey, y'all know what it is. Like Terrence said earlier, it's the podcast to hear. So make sure you live it, love it, do it.
Kicking off the show, Jason, we're going to talk about honestly the biggest news to break last week, which was the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict. Um, a lot of people were kind of waiting with bated breath for this verdict to come out. Um, I'm not saying that I wasn't um, emotionally invested. Is probably a good way to put it, but I'm not all that surprised because it's, I'm referencing an article by Ray Sanchez and Eric Levinson and Brad Parks from CNN. Self-defense is not illegal, Kyle Rittenhouse tells Fox News after a not guilty verdict. Kyle Rittenhouse, the teenager who killed two people and shot another during unrest in Kenosha, Wisconsin, was acquitted last Friday of first-degree intentional homicide and four other felony charges. Rittenhouse, wearing a dark jacket with a burgundy tie and shirt, stood behind the defense table as each not guilty verdict was read. He tried to hold back tears, then sobbed and appeared to collapse forward on the table, where his attorney embraced him. As um, I mentioned, there was a Fox News reference to basically Rittenhouse telling someone as he was being driven away from the courthouse, the jury reached a correct verdict. Self-defense is not illegal, and I believe they came to the correct verdict, and I'm glad that everything went well. It was a panel, the jury, of 5 men and 7 women, and they deliberated for more than 24 hours over the past 4 days in a closely watched case that polarized an already divided nation. That verdict cannot be appealed. Of course, the governor, Tony Evers, in a statement, called for peace on the streets and said that the trial has reopened wounds that have not yet fully healed. Jason, now that the verdict's here, now that the reaction's here, when you heard the verdict, like what were some of your initial reactions?
As far as the verdict goes, I know episodes ago, many moons ago, in the pantheon of the Cal Park Bros, we talked about the Derek Chauvin verdict, and I mentioned then that I was surprised at the verdict. That I was expecting him to be found not guilty. I was expecting it more to be a hung jury because I figured there'll be at least one person on the jury that didn't want to convict him of his charges, and thus, getting the trial thrown out or whatever. When it comes to this case, once I heard that he was claiming self defense, I was pretty confident that based off of that, he was going to be found not guilty because I was just thinking, again, not that I agree that he's not guilty or anything, but just in a situation of unrest or riot, as some people might call it, and the chaos that ensues with that, I just felt like it might be a difficult challenge for the prosecuting attorneys to disprove that Rittenhouse wasn't defending himself. And obviously, that turned out to be the case, that he was found not guilty on the 5 charges. And just to put it out there, the 5 charges were first degree intentional homicide, attempted first degree intentional homicide, first degree reckless homicide, and then 2 counts of first degree reckless endangering safety. So again, he was found not guilty on all 5. He had other charges dropped, which we'll go into later. But to answer your question again, I was surprised. Um, and not only that, I just kind of felt like, with even though I totally felt he was completely acting or overacting, all the fake tears and fake crying in the court, even when the verdict was read, I just kind of feel like all that stuff will go into account when people will, get suckered into believing that too. Um, so yeah, overall, can't say I'm surprised by this at all. It's unfortunate in some regards, because I think it potentially could set a bad precedent, which we'll go into later. Um, yeah, I'll leave it at that for now. But that's my thought. Um, what was it that surprised you? Said you weren't surprised. What was it that kind of had you in that unsurprised kind of feeling regarding the verdict?
Well, before I get into that, you said it's setting a bad precedent, and I would like to hear more. What precedent do you feel that this is setting? Because I've discussed this with a few people this week. I want to know from your perspective, what precedent do you feel this case set?
So first off, let me go ahead and say that I would hope that no one would ever go into that same type of environment, protest or unrest, with the intention of shooting or hurting anybody. And I'd say Kyle did or Rittenhouse did, but just putting it out there. But I think that this opens the door now for anybody in a similar situation, whether, and honestly, really any situation at all, whether it's unrest involved or a riot involved or not. Now they can make any type of claim, not any type of claim, but they can make a claim of self defense in any regard, because any attorney can point to this and say, well, in the famous Rittenhouse case, he was found not guilty on, because he was defending himself, and they can make any correlation between that to say, hey, these are the same situations, we can do that. So, um, I'd say that. Now, potentially on reverse side, I wonder also too, will this open the door for other people who have been jailed previously for similar self defense crimes, but they were found guilty, for them to say, hey, well, wait a minute, I want to file an appeal. He said he was defending himself in that situation. Like, my first thought of that comes into women or men who were victims of domestic violence, and they happen to kill their attackers, you know, in self defense during an act, and all of a sudden they were found themselves, convicted of a crime, as opposed to someone believing in self defense. So maybe that might open the door for that. So maybe it'll be a precedence in that regard. But I think negatively, that's my concern. There is going forward now. Whenever there's any type of situation involved where somebody can just say, "Hey, I was in fear for my life. There was a mob trying to get me, so I shot," and then thought later. So that's my concern when it comes to that going forward. Any case that's similar is going to be looking to this to say, well, let's model our case after this. Similar situations. There we go. So, um, and one last thing, not to be long winded here, and I found an article about this as well. Wasn't looking for it, but just came up. I just wonder if this will set just a further precedent. Not that there wasn't one before already, when it comes to trials like this. When it comes to cases of white privilege in the courtroom. So, because no, I agree with you that I wasn't following the trial day by day like some people were, which is fine if you want to do that. I wasn't that enthralled with it. but I kept up with it when it comes to the just the stuff on CNN, stuff like that, and just the things that were benefited to Kyle. I will wonder if the same benefits will be given to someone who wasn't white. When it comes to, it seems like the judge was highly favorable towards Kyle and the defense attorneys in that regard. And again, that's based off information I've gotten from multiple news sources, videos I've seen in the trial, and things like that. And also just the firsthand knowledge I have of courtroom demeanor. And it just seemed like the judge was really just in favor of the defense and Kyle. Um, so yeah, I know that was probably more what you're expecting, but yeah, that's what I meant by setting a precedent or keeping a
No,
precedent going.
no, I had no idea, frankly, Jason, what you were gonna say. Um, and I feel it's important because so much has happened and emotions are high, especially when you have a high profile case like this. And I feel like, you know, people may pay attention for a week, of a court case, but I feel like there's so much misinformation out there that people were already kind of rooting for laundry, as I like to call it. Like the lines were already drawn, whether people agree with Kyle Rittenhouse or not. Um, One thing that I did not know is that one of the um, one of the one of his attackers, in quotations, um, had a firearm. I didn't know that. Does that change whether or not I think that he should be found not guilty? Not really, because at the end of the day, he's coming there, right? He doesn't live in Kenosha. Um, so for me, a sticking point is always going to be you. You're literally throwing a rock and then hiding your hand, and so you have a lot of people that fancy themselves, guardians of the law enforcement because they feel like, oh, we're gonna go over there and help. And using that rationale, frankly, with the AK, it we're rather fortunate that more people didn't end up dead that night.
Well, just to be clear, I think what he actually, not that well, I know there's a difference, but I think what he had was an AR-15. Just want to put it out there just for factual sake. But yeah,
No, no, you should correct me. No, no, I said I said AK, and I was thinking AR, and I appreciate your correcting me. We should get that right because that does matter.
well, yeah, it matters. But I mean, same point though. AK, AR-15, okay, different guns. I'd say probably same purpose if he had one or the other. So, in regards to why, if he had it, he would have had it for whatever reason he had it for to protect his community or whatever BS excuse that he was using to be there in the first place. Which I know that him not supposed to be there, he shouldn't have been there, isn't a factor in this when it comes to legal matters because they can always say, well, the people who are rioting and protesting shouldn't have been there either. So, um, but still, he was there. So whether they had AR-15 or AK, still the point of him having that gun or that type of gun was for what he says he was trying to do: protect a community, even though he didn't live there, and his grandparents may have lived there, whatever. Don't know. Don't really care. Um, but yeah, just putting that out there. AR-15.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think the details matter, and we are guaranteed to fuck up the details because there's no way we're gonna have all the details ready. Um, and you brought up a good point, Jason. Every detail that we think matters is not gonna matter. The fact that a lot of people were hung up on what the hell is this kid doing here, and I'm using kid in quotations because a gun in the hands of a 17-year-old at that point, he ain't a damn kid anymore.
Well, I mean, he's still a kid. Yeah, he's just a kid. And I guess illegal. I guess I can't say that anymore. A kid acting illegally, which is not. I guess in court of law, it's not true anymore. He apparently was well within his right to be there and defend himself and all the other crap like that. Um, yeah, and yeah, and I guess it's hard to take that out of it. The fact that he's not supposed to be there. Yeah, that may be true, but legally in the court case, that's not. It apparently didn't matter. So, um, yeah, it's the one interesting thing I am going to wait for a little bit is because, as you probably know, the gun that he had was bought for him by one of his buddies, somebody who's the dated sister apparently, um, and that person was 18 or over, and that individual was had charges against him for that, buying a gun for somebody who's not him and a minor, and now potentially he may have his charges dropped because if Kyle's legally allowed to possess a gun, or rather, it wasn't illegal for Kyle to have it, then you know. And the reason why I find that interesting is because going back to another episode of ours where we talked about, and forgive me, Ella French. We talked about the Ella French case, the police officer who lost her life, in active duty in Chicago. Um, the person who used the gun that killed her was bought for that. It was a minor, and the gun was bought for him by somebody who was 18 of age, so forth and so forth. So now I know it's two different situations, but I'm just speaking of the generality of it. That a legal adult bought a gun to someone who is a minor, and that minor used that weapon to kill someone. Um, but yet these two individuals, Kyle and his buddy, might be getting off scot free.
Yeah, it's going to be really hard. Well, one, like, yeah, he's free in the sense that he's not going to do time, but this is going to follow him wherever the hell he goes next.
I was thinking about that too because, like we mentioned, he does live in Kenosha. He lives in Antioch, Illinois, which I will say I joke around with you that you live in Wisconsin. He's definitely truly Wisconsin. Antioch, Illinois, is right on the border of Illinois, Wisconsin, and only about 35 minutes away from Kenosha. And I was thinking about this earlier too, in regards to, yeah, like you said, he's not going to serve any time, but his face has been all over the television. People will recognize his face. So even if he were to stay in Antioch or anywhere in Illinois, probably really anywhere else in the country, but definitely in Illinois, Wisconsin, people are going to recognize him. And not that I'm encouraging anyone to do him physical harm, but I imagine will be a challenge because there are going to be people that don't like him for whatever reason. People are just going to like him and they're going to want to do him harm. So I would think, and I hope he's going to take every precaution to protect himself. But I agree with you that his life is going, at least for the next probably few years, as long as his face is recognizable and probably his name for that matter too, is going to follow him wherever he goes. Whenever he's applying for a job, going to college, meeting new people in life. Because I'm not sure if it's college plans, but he's 18, so now that he's free, he can go do that stuff if he wants to. But he's going to be recognizable forever, at least because that name. I shouldn't say forever, but definitely at least 5-10 years. That name, Kyle Rittenhouse, it's probably going to be pretty memorable for a while. So I'm not sure where he can go. I'm not sure if he's going to have to do the whole um, Steve Bartman going to hiding kind of a thing. Hey, don't shake your head. Listen. I know there's two different things, but I'm just saying that Steve Bartman, just for catching a foul ball, had to go into hiding in his own hometown of Chicago. Now I don't know if Kyle's going to have to go into hiding because seemingly there are a lot of people that support him. Given that he was up in Wisconsin, a very gun friendly state. Not that Illinois is that much different, but just from the fact that there are going to be people that don't like him, he might have to go in some type of protection, self protection. Just like, hey, but maybe I should be mindful of not doing this, doing that, or the other. Again, not feeling sorry for him at all because I don't. Might be something he has to do and think about.
Yeah, I'm conflicted about the whole. Oh, he's gonna have to go into the witness protection program because in some circles he's being hailed as a fucking hero.
True.
Um,
Like you said though, that's some circles.
right, but that's the world. No one is gonna have 100% approval rating, right? And so my thoughts as I think about this verdict is I wasn't so much upset about the verdict as I paid more attention to the reactions and how people responded. Like you shouldn't be rooting this kid on like it's the fucking NFL football game of the week.
Well, I mean, you're gonna have those people that are pro Second Amendment, pro this, pro that, pro gun, whatever. I was gonna say I don't want to say that he's probably gonna be looked at as a hero, but he probably is. He probably is. 17-year-old kid, young, somebody who's supposed to be young and immature, blah blah blah. But yet he stepped up as an adult would to help protect his community, and he was willing to kill someone over the right, that right and whatever. People are gonna look at him as a hero. There's pictures and videos which could have been totally random of him at a bar. By the way, which there's that 17-year-old in the bar drinking with supposed Wisconsin Proud Boys or whatever. So even at the night of it where it happened, he's already considered a hero at that point. Now probably even more so now. It wouldn't shock me if he is you know getting touted by Trump at some point. Wouldn't shock me.
Well, that'll make for a fun midterm on it.
Yeah, you heard it here now, folks. Kyle Rittenhouse for vice president.
All right. Well, that concludes our first segment regarding the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about the increase in fast casual restaurants. Coming up next on Cal Park Bros.